The Quran and the Prophet ﷺ have such a dynamic way of explaining rizq. And the reason that's so important is so often when we think of rizq, the first thing we think about or what we limit rizq to is the idea of money, right? Our rizq is what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has provided us from our wealth, from our mal. But that's not what it is. And to demonstrate this, I am going to jump into one of the most beautiful ahadith that you guys might ever hear. But before I do that, Assalamu alaikum. If you are new here, my name is Hannah. I am a trauma coach. I am a high impact self-improvement coach for Muslim women. I practice medicine as a PA, and this is my YouTube channel. It is a part of my effort to make God-conscious healing and self-improvement available for every Muslim. Let's talk about rizq, what it is, what it isn't, and how we can apply that understanding to our lives so that we are living out high impact lives for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The Prophet ﷺ, when he would describe his wife Khadija radiallahu anha, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be pleased with her, his first wife, he would say, I was provisioned her love. Allah gave me her love as my rizq. And while that is, if we can get past the fact that that is the most romantic way to describe any person that you love, it really speaks to the fact that rizq is so expansive in its definition. Rizq by the Prophet ﷺ was understood, her love as rizq was understood to mean Allah provisioned the emotional support she gave him, the way she stayed calm when he was distressed, the way she uplifted him when he was down, the way she put her literal life on the line for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to support the Prophet ﷺ in his mission. That was his rizq. So what is rizq? It is essentially the provision that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends us. It is what he sends us to sustain us through our lives. So if we understand that definition, then we understand that rizq is well beyond money. Yes, for some, rizq is money. It's the amount that you amass in wealth. It's the amount that you amass in asset. That is rizq. But rizq is also the people in your lives, right, who help you through your life. It is the health that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you. It's the time that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you. It is the ease that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends you. Another hadith to demonstrate this fact is actually an interesting one that I wasn't aware of, but as I was doing my research for the video, I discovered this hadith and wanted to share it with you guys. And the Prophet ﷺ said, a servant is not provided with anything better and vaster than patience. In the Arabic of this hadith, it does use the word reference rizq specifically. Patience is rizq. These qualities, these characteristics of our personality, of our being that help sustain us through our lives are also part of rizq. And we find this is actually such an amazing thing, because when you go back to even personality psychology, one thing you will learn is that some of us are actually genetically encoded to be more or less a certain personality trait. For example, there are genes that encode for someone to be more extroverted or more introverted. There are genes that, encode for someone to be more assertive and vice versa. And so while a lot of this is very much affected by the environment, there's also an aspect that is just truly God-given. Genetics is God-given, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who decides our genetics. And then it's the environment that influences the expression of those genes. This is the concept of epigenetics. It's a very powerful science that we understand. And it's also an extremely empowering way that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows us to live. Because although we cannot choose our genes, we can, to a certain extent, more or less impact our environment and impact the expression of those genes. And therefore, we're utilizing this incredible rizq of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a way that helps better us for our lives. So what does the Quran say about rizq? I mean, there are several verses that reference rizq in the Quran. One really interesting verse is one that I often reference, where the translation goes, and I'll pop it up on the screen, inshallah, that for those who have taqwa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for those who have God consciousness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He will make for them a way out of any distress, and He will grant them rizq, will provide for them from places that they don't even know, from places that they would never even imagine. Essentially. So we talked about what rizq is. How do we increase our rizq? This is really interesting because in the world of self-improvement, it's a very hustle culture, right? It's just, wake up at 6 a.m. and get your work done and do this and that. But we're Muslim. We live in a different world. We understand that there are metaphysical realities to this world that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala put in place that allow us to hack these systems. This is whether we are talking about self-improvement in general or whether we're talking about healing trauma. This is why I do the type of trauma coaching that I do, which intersects science and deen, because then we can maximize what we are able to get through the barakah in the rizq Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving us. So one way to hack that is to live a life of God consciousness, because Allah is literally telling us if we are living our lives day to day, recognizing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, recognizing what pleases Him, trying to work towards that, trying to abstain from haram, and we understand that when we are trying to increase ourselves in whatever sustenance, if we're doing it in a way that displeases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we lose the blessing in it. But if we do it in a way that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He increases our rizq. So having taqwa is one way to increase rizq. There's another way to increase rizq, and I actually made an entire video about this, but it is the process of making istighfar, saying astaghfirullah. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala literally tells us that when we make istighfar, He increases our rizq. It is an if-then relationship. Another way that we know to increase rizq is to maintain the ties of kinship. This is a hadith from the Prophet ﷺ, and he tells us this. Another way to increase rizq is to give in charity. There are lots of these spiritual hacks to increasing rizq, and that's what's incredible about this. How does this apply to life? The way we view rizq affects our mindset, and if you're not already convinced at how powerful mindset can be, I want you to imagine what life would be like if you truly leaned into the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the sustainer. If you truly leaned into the fact that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to take care of you. Not your job, not your parents, not your spouse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it might be that your rizq comes through the tunnels of those people, but ultimately is related to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we do that, we're entering into a mindset of abundance. And we hear this all the time. And I actually hear, interestingly enough, a lot of Muslim coaches, just like myself, using this concept of abundance. And yet when they use it, they separate it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And this is what godless spiritual gurus and coaches do, is they separate God from the reality of abundance. But if we want to lean into an abundance mindset, then we have to realize that abundance comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When we do that, the world of possibilities opens up to us. Example, I work with women who have dealt with deep-seated trauma, childhood trauma, narcissistic abuse, so on and so forth. Oftentimes when we first start working, there's this block in their mind, right? How is it, Hannah, that I'm going to heal this trauma? Is it really possible? You're telling me that I can heal trauma of 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, right? You're telling me in this program of yours, my program is now 12 weeks, I am going to be able to heal trauma. And the first part of the program, or just healing trauma in general, is you're not going to jump into the processes of integrating trauma and doing all of the work that we do around trauma. It's first, we need to get your mindset right. Who is the healer? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the healer. I'm not the healer. God forbid I ever tell you that I am the one that heals your trauma. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that heals your trauma. Allah is Malik al-Mulk. He is the owner of the dominion. The dominion is everything that we can see and everything that we cannot see. It is ever expansive. It is always full, never decreased. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us to every single one of us was to step in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Him for what we wanted. Every single person from the beginning of mankind to the very end of mankind was to step in front of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and ask Allah for everything that their heart desires from beginning to end, big and small, everything possible. We would not decrease Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mulk, not so much as dipping a pin into the ocean decreases the ocean of its water. And even that is an exaggeration, but Allah was just, we're just being given an example so that we can kind of understand it in our own heads. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not ever decreased. So when you come into your healing journey, right, you come into your healing trauma journey, or for those of you guys who aren't, don't deal with trauma but are on a self-improvement journey, when you come into that from a mindset of abundance and you recognize this might be hard on me, I might have dealt with years of abuse, I might feel so out of control, out of touch with my body, out of touch with my mind, I feel like every day I'm just fighting to live, but I'm rooting my healing in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, in my relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate giver, He is a razaq, He is a sustainer, Allah is Malik al-Mulk, He is the owner of the dominion, He is so generous, He is al-Kareem. I trust and I know that with patience, in time, in putting in the effort, He is going to deliver me from this hardship, because Allah tells us in the Quran, Inna ma'al usri yusra, indeed with hardship comes ease. And that's a twofold thing. Indeed with hardship comes ease. During the hardship you are going to find ease during the hardship. Also, indeed, one day the hardship is going to end and there's going to be a world outside of that. And there's two parts of healing. There's a part where you're doing the trauma healing, for example, where you are, subhanAllah, working on the trauma integration, regulating the nervous system, doing all of these things that I teach ladies in my group to do. And then there's a place after that where you are essentially healed, not fully healed. I don't think you're ever fully healed. I think everyone's constantly on a journey, but you're healing. You're in a much better place. And now you get to build out this new world for yourself, this new life for yourself. And you get to lean into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's abundance. You get to lean into His rizq. You get to be grateful. And one thing I forgot to mention is you want more rizq, gratitude. Gratitude is literally in the Quran. If you, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us that if we thank Him, He will increase us. Point blank, period. Again, it's another if-then relationship. Do you see how that mindset of abundance allows us to lean into gratitude, which allows us to lean into Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's rizq, and then we open this world of opportunities? Can you understand now how seeing rizq as more than just money can lead to a completely different life? Money is, alhamdulillah, it is a blessing when you have it, but for some people, money can be an incredible curse when it is absent of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when it is absent of taqwa, right? It could be what tortures a person. But oftentimes, even when you think of business owners or like entrepreneurs or people who are going after high-paying jobs, what are they telling you? They want a sense of financial security. Maybe they want to free up their time. Maybe they're doing it for the sense of health and well-being so that they're not constantly breaking their back doing exhausting work. Funny enough, some jobs will still have you doing that, but now you get paid a lot, so it's harder to leave. But those things can also be achieved through other means. Another hadith of the Prophet ﷺ is the best rizq is a righteous wife. Imagine for the men who are watching this or the women who are watching this, having a husband or a wife who is so loving to you and supportive to you and helps you carry your burdens and helps calm you down when you're feeling riled up and anxious, makes you feel seen and comforted. That's rizq that money cannot buy. And so moving forward, inshallah, when you think about rizq, I want you to expand the definition and think in the goodness that comes from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is rizq, and be appreciative of that. The Prophet ﷺ told us to take advantage of 5 before 5. Forgive me if I'm going out of order for this, but our health before our sickness, our riches before our poverty, our time before our busyness, our youth before our old age, and our life before our death. All of these things are rizq, and all of us at a certain point, we're going to lose our health. So let's take advantage of the rizq of health when it's there. And at some point, we're going to lose our youth unless Allah takes us when we are in our youth, we're going to lose our youth. And so let's take advantage of the rizq of youth. Eventually, you're going to get busy. Life just has a way of getting busier. Take advantage of the rizq of free time when you do have it. So much more I can say on this topic, but for my ladies who are ready to take back their life from trauma, you heard what I'm saying about rizq and you want that mindset, you want to access that healing, I want you to go to the link in my description, take a look at my program and apply, inshallah, to be a part of the program. Remember, sometimes people are a part of your rizq, and it might be that there's a dua that you made and it's a whisper of this dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is sending you your rizq. So I would love to meet you, and my application is finally open for discovery calls. For the rest of you guys, continue to enjoy the content on YouTube. Please subscribe if you haven't. Please like this video and comment below if you found anything in it helpful, and share your thoughts, inshallah, on what rizq means to you. Assalamu alaikum, and I will see you in the next one.